Welcome to Chapter 6. Over next couple of weeks, we will be looking at the skeletal system. We will be going through all major bones mainly during the next week. But before that, we should familiarize ourselves with the general characteristics of the bone. So let's get started. So when I was thinking of where to start with this chapter, I ran into this picture. And I think that it is a very good one for what I was looking for. The human skeleton begins to develop somewhere around 13 to 16 weeks after conception. Initially, what is to become a skeleton is actually made of cartilage that you can see on this figure as the pinkish darker areas. And over development, this cartilage is replaced by bone. This is an X-ray or CT scan of a developing embryo. Note how only some of the bones are present at this stage of the development. And by the birth, a human has about 300 bones and cartilage elements. You can see here a drawing of a human skeleton at birth. I have included it also as your supplementary material that you can access in this activity on BlackBoard and study it in more detail. Please note how the areas in blue are often still cartilage at birth. And this is an especially important point as there is an exception. The areas that require flexibility remain cartilaginous. These are, of course, parts of our joints, intervertebral discs, ligaments, and so on. And what is interesting, if we wish to do a bit of comparative anatomy here, is that the same lies true for the development of many other animals too. But to go back to what we saw earlier, when you are born, you have about 300 bones. And this process of changing cartilage to bone, called ossification, continues into your 20s or so. And in adulthood, you will have somewhere around 206 bones. This is due to the many bones fusing together as you age. The easily bending nature of cartilage in a new bone allows for a baby's easier passage through the birth canal. There are three different types of cartilage that we should be familiar with. These are hyaline cartilage, elastic cartilage, and fibrocartilage. Let's look at each of these a little bit. So, hyaline is the most common of these. It can be found on various joints known as articular facets, or at your costal cartilage where the rib ends before joining the sternum, which is your chest bone, and at respiratory pathway airways. And of course, your nose tip. As for its structure, it contains only collagen fibers, and therefore it provides a great combination of support, flexibility, and resilience. The next one, elastic cartilage, is very similar to the previous one, but it contains elastic fibers which, as name suggests, make it much more bendy if you wish. You can see that when looking at, for example, the ear, it is very flexible but then bounces back to its shape. And also epiglottis, this tiny little most superior structure at your larynx that works as a flap to close off the path to the lungs when you swallow the food. And then we have, of course, our fibrocartilage. These are made of very thick collagen fibers which make it very strong. So the intervertebral discs between the vertebrae, the bony parts of your spine, A meniscus of your knee, these are tiny cartilage glands holding it together, and these can get injured. And the pubic symphysis joining the hip bones together anteriorly. This part opens when a woman is ready to give birth. At this point, I would like you to take the diagram that I uploaded on your Blackboard and review these cartilage types by coloring in the structures. It is going to be easiest if you have an access to make a print of it first and then study these slides to fill in these structures. Alternatively, some of my students prefer to get a plastic model of a skeleton and build structures out of clay onto it. I will have a time-lapse video of this to show this concept to you after this activity. I think we are now ready to move on from the cartilages and look at the functions of bones. Please note that this list may vary a bit depending on which textbook you are using. This one reflects the one that we use on this A&P course. Often the support is the one that most of us think immediately. By this I mean that the skeleton and bones really give a kind of a scaffolding that the rest of our body is built on. Think about it. Without skeleton that gives us the structure that everything else kind of hangs on, we would likely be just a blob on the floor, unable to do many things that we do. It really gives our body the structure and shape. It is especially soft organs that are supported on their right places by the framework that the skeleton gives to our body. The next one that I think we often think of too is the protective role of the skeleton. The most vital body parts of ours are enclosed inside bony structures. Think about the brain, for example. It is pretty important for us to be able to function, and you would not really exist without it. So it is enclosed inside a strong protective structure, the skull. And same goes for the heart and the lungs. They are vital organs required for us to stay alive and therefore well protected inside the rib cage. And we have, of course, the continuation of the brain as a spinal cord running inside a well-protected space of the vertebral column. Well, the next one that I want to talk about relates to the picture that we saw earlier. Think about it. Even if you had the best and the strongest muscles, but no skeleton, would you be able to move efficiently? Of course not. Muscles almost always attach from the two or more different ends in a manner so that they run from one bone to another, crossing over a joint formed by the bones. This is what moves the joint, increasing or decreasing the angle between two parts, such as in this example the biceps brachii muscle causing a flexion and triceps an extension. Of course, there are other movements possible too, but the basic principle is the same: muscles attaching to adjacent bones and therefore generating the movement. Bones being just like levers in physics. Now, let's look at some others that may not be initially as obvious ones. Your skeleton plays a major role as a storage site of minerals and growth factors. For example, majority of the calcium in your body, just like phosphorus, is stored in the bones. And same goes for growth factors, which drive the physical growth of ours. And this one is for the ladies especially. This is the time to build that strong skeleton so that you do not end up with problems later on in their life with osteoporosis or other bone density issues. This and your teens are the best time to make sure that your bones are getting enough calcium to develop strong, so that you are covered also later in life. Okay, let's move to the next one. This as well might not be initially as obvious, but once you think about it, I'm sure that you have heard about it. It is hematopoiesis, which is the medical term for the production of blood cells. And it happens in the red bone marrow of certain bones. You might have heard that sometimes we need to harvest bone marrow from a donor so that it can be donated to a person whose own blood cell production is compromised for some reason, for example, due to a pathology or a treatment. Okay, two more that I want to introduce. It is fat, with the fancy biological term that we use for it being triglyceride, that is also stored in the bone cavities, and it can be used as an energy source when needed. And finally, I want to mention hormone production as one of the functions of the bones. For example, osteocalcin is secreted by the bones in order to regulate insulin secretion, glucose levels, and metabolism. So there you have it, 7 key functions of the bones. On our next video lecture, we will be looking at different classification approaches to our bones, as well as talking a little more about the structure of the bones, both on a larger and microscopic level. I look forward to seeing you in that lecture.